Give you kind of the picture of the layers there are. So there's Standard Dutch, which is the Dutch spoken in the Netherlands, and you can hear that on TV in the Netherlands. And I think the Dutch people assume that that's the real Dutch. But on TV here, on the news, for instance, and all official like politics and like all the more official standard language contexts, they have standard Flemish, which has certain different words. There are certain words that they don't know in the Netherlands, but they're still standard. They're not dialect words. Of course they're pronounced differently. So we have a different kind of it's just pronounced differently. Like vowels are pronounced less diphthongized. For instance, in the Netherlands they pronounce long vowels diphthongized as well, even though they're not really diphthongs.
Okay.
And we don't do that. But that's the same. You get the same kind of thing on the TV, like on the news. If you listen to Dutch news and Flemish news, there is really a difference in the way things are pronounced. And also, I guess, in certain constructions that we can do with dijkant or the other way around, or certain words. But there is a difference, and still that's standard Flemish. They still use je and jij,
okay,
and not the dialects forms of it. But there are differences between it. And I think that's the standard language too. That's not less real than the Dutch variant. It's as standard.
Because up to the 70s, Holland, the Netherlands, was kind of a beacon for Flanders. Culturally speaking, they spoke correct Dutch, where we were still trapped in our local dialects, and we kind of looked up to them. Where we try to overcome the historical second-rate citizenship that we have always kind of endured in this country. And whereas Flanders became richer, more educated, more self-confident over the last, let's say, 30 years, the relationship with Holland has changed, where Holland has always never had any questions about its own identity. And they never had to struggle, culturally or linguistically, to maintain their own culture, and that's why we consider them as being a bit negligent about that culture, in speaking English and using English words in their Dutch, where it's not really necessary. And the relationship is different in a way that when we compare to the French speakers, who consider themselves being francophones, meaning being part of a kind of a state that is not determined by geographically limited borders, but which is determined by a cultural identity. So, rather than the territory where you live, the Flemish don't have that, let's say, common identity with Holland, especially because for someone in Flanders, that concept of cultural identity doesn't exist. You are part of the community where you live. So the place where you live is more important than your culture. It's what I mentioned before, the layered identity, which is in the end determined by where you live. And we don't feel like we belong to the same people as Holland. No, the Dutch in Netherlands are. You have to realize that physically they're already different. They look different. Whereas a guy from Wallonia and Flanders, they don't look different. The way of living, the way if we go to Holland, the houses, the public space, private spaces are very different from what we know in Belgium.
You notice it when you take the train from Brussels to Amsterdam. When you cross the border, things get loud on the train. They speak much, much louder. And much. But it's not just loud. The differences between Flemish people and Dutch people are, to a certain extent, Dutch people are louder in just speaking, but also more direct. I know from a lot of people that you can get easily offended if you're Flemish and you go to the Netherlands, And also from Flemish friends, from Dutch friends that I know, who know that they've probably offended, that they kind of got into a situation where they offended a Flemish person even when they didn't mean to, but just you start you startle a bit when a Dutch person says something to you, something that directly. You say, another stereotype is probably that they don't know how to cook.
Really?
Yeah, their food is terrible, but they know it themselves too. But they don't care that much. Like, at least that's what I've heard from Dutch people, saying that they, probably because of the Protestantism that was stronger there, and there are probably differences between people and between areas in the Netherlands as well. Like, more Protestant areas are stricter in this, but they, or at least that's what I heard from someone who's of the older generation. So the younger people are different, but the older generation, for instance, they don't, like, they see eating as a necessary evil. They have to do it, so they just prepare something. They don't take the time for it. Whereas I think Flemish people are more to the French kind of side, like Walloons as well, of course. Like, just Belgian people are more to the Burgundian type of living, more like having a nice meal with nice drinks and taking your time for it, sharing that with people. Like, going out for a meal is an event.
Do the Dutch have other stereotypes about the Flemish?
Well, I know that the Dutch they know as a stereotype they have that the Belgians in general, or Flemish people. I think they kind of generalize that anyway, that they're a bit stupid.
Really?
Yeah, but I know from a lot of Dutch people that when I asked people about that, they actually said, yeah, the stereotype is that Belgians are stupid, but I think it's the other way around. But I mean, that's of course like friends people. So I think the stupid stereotype comes from the dialects, and I think more West Flemish dialect. The stereotypical view in Flanders of West Flemish people is like West Flemish farmers, because there is a lot of farmland there, and a lot of people there are farmers. Whereas here, here I'm saying like near to Brussels, where I come from, you have less farmland, so you have less farmers, and so you associate dialect less with farmers. Whereas the West Flemish dialect is more associated with farmers, and it's also like it's the most stative dialect of Flanders. It has evolved less over the years. It's closer to medieval Dutch, in fact. So that's probably why Dutch people consider Flemish people stupid, because it kind of sounds like farmers, and they associate that with stupid farmers, something like that.